What you're about to discover isn't simple guidance. It represents a fundamental transformation. A transformation in your manner of walking, your way of speaking, your patterns of thought, and your methods of action. A transformation in how you decode your situations and take charge of what's ahead. Allow me to share something most people never understand until opportunity has passed. Your existence conforms to your expectations. The manner in which you anticipate events unfolding typically determines how they materialize, not through destiny, but through concentrated attention. Your prevailing thoughts magnetize circumstances into conformity. They determine your behaviors, your communication, your persistence, or your withdrawal. So consider this possibility right now. What if you operated under the assumption that everything was aligning in your favor, even during hardship, even during periods of silence, even when visible evidence is absent? What if you conducted yourself as though the result was guaranteed, as though the entrance was already accessible and your only task was to step through it? This isn't fanciful optimism. This is deliberate mental architecture, and it represents precisely how history's most exceptional minds navigated failure, condemnation, and terror. Henry Ford didn't merely wish for favorable outcomes, he determined they would manifest. He invested his conviction into the uncertain before society acknowledged it was remotely achievable. When voices everywhere declared the motor car a delusion, he constructed manufacturing facilities. Thomas Edison didn't question himself after his initial 100th or 10,000th unsuccessful attempt because he operated under the assumption that achievement was unavoidable. He didn't require visual confirmation. He maintained it within his consciousness and conducted himself as though it already belonged to him. Charles Schwab didn't function from a place of anxiety. He functioned from conviction in his vision. A conviction so powerful that complete steel kingdoms were molded by it. His certainty proved infectious. His confidence compelled other men to follow. And Andrew Carnegie, the individual who revolutionized manufacturing and prosperity in America, he never questioned whether things might fail. He advanced as though the conclusions were already guaranteed. That represents the force that constructs legacies. So why not you? Why not at this moment? Why not today? You've invested sufficient time in worry, sufficient time in delay, sufficient time narrating stories anchored in anxiety. Now the moment has arrived to reverse the narrative. Because the iteration of yourself that delays, that overthinks, that retreats when existence becomes tumultuous, he cannot exist simultaneously with the iteration of yourself that advances with certainty. You cannot accommodate two mentalities. One must perish. So today, I present you with a new framework, a new lens, a new benchmark. Conduct yourself as though everything perpetually aligns favorably. Not because it's assured, but because it renders you unstoppable. Because when you presume that triumph is inevitable, you advance with bravery. You communicate with command. You direct your existence instead of bargaining with it. This presentation serves as your restoration, your new operational framework, and it demands repetition, not once, not twice, but daily, until your unconscious mind embraces this certainty as natural law, until uncertainty dissolves in the presence of your composure, because terror cannot survive where conviction resides. And the instant you exist in harmony with the presumption that the result is secured, you obliterate fear. So absorb this with concentration. Vocalize these principles loudly. Allow them to penetrate your nervous system like propulsion, because what follows transcends motivation. This is reconditioning. And by the conclusion of this session, you will not process information identically, you will not advance identically, and you will not remain identical. Let's commence. Let's begin with an inquiry that possesses the capability to reconstruct your complete existence. What if everything resolves favorably? Not merely the minor matters, not merely the comfortable results, but all of it, the obstacles, the postponements, the suffering, the quietness, the redirections, the instances where nothing appeared logical. What if all of it, every fragment of the challenge, is constructing the precise iteration of you necessary for the aspiration you've been requesting? Most individuals don't inhabit that potential. They inhabit concern. They awaken, bracing for collapse. They discuss worst-case possibilities. They anticipate betrayal. They wait for the foundation to crumble, even when existence is ascending. And due to that anticipation, they unconsciously channel their force toward what they dread instead of what they desire. But there exists another method to exist, a method that doesn't necessitate exaggeration, a method that doesn't demand flawlessness, a method that simply requests one element from you, to have conviction before witnessing proof. Because here's the reality. Conviction isn't a response. Conviction is a selection. And that selection directs the force of your consciousness. The subconscious doesn't debate with you. It embraces what you provide it, and then it constructs around that presumption. If you declare circumstances never align for me, your subconscious responds acknowledged, and it begins filtering your reality through that perspective. That's what you begin noticing. That's what you begin anticipating. That's what you magnetize, not through supernatural forces, but because you ceased searching for anything alternative. Now envision the contrary.
Before we continue, I want to mention that this Napoleon Hill message is brought to you by this channel, Napoleon Hill Blueprints. If you're finding value here, we'd greatly appreciate it if you'd take a moment to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and turn on the notification bell so you're notified when we upload tomorrow's new message.
Envision awakening regardless of the situation, with this silent directive operating in the background. Everything is aligning favorably for me, even if your finances are depleted, even if you've experienced betrayal, even if the pathway isn't transparent yet. You still advance as though it's materializing. You still perform as though the entrances are already unsealing. You still construct as though the groundwork is unshakable. That conviction alone, implemented daily, would reconstruct your complete existence. Because when you operate under the assumption that circumstances are functioning in your benefit, you become more composed under strain. You become more patient during the waiting period. You advance with authority even when the proof isn't present yet. This isn't self-deception. This is self-governance. Thomas Edison once stated, "I have not experienced defeat. I've simply discovered 10,000 methods that won't function." That's not merely tenacity. That's an individual who operated under the assumption the illumination device was already his possession. It was simply a question of duration. He didn't inquire, "What if this never materializes?" He inquired, "What alternative can I attempt? Because I understand it's approaching." That mental framework represents the distinction between the individual who surrenders after 3 obstacles and the one who transforms into a legend. Henry Ford, when his financial backers ridiculed the concept of a vehicle for the ordinary citizen, he didn't attempt to validate himself through language. He didn't contract into terror. He progressed forward as though society was mistaken and his vision was already accomplished. And that's not arrogance. That's presumption combined with discipline. It's the determination to function as though it's operational, even when you cannot perceive it yet. The fragile wait for validation. The powerful advance as though the validation already exists. That's what this mental framework provides you. It eliminates the requirement for external approval. It substitutes panic with posture. And it installs a new conviction system. The result is guaranteed. I simply haven't arrived yet. So allow me to pose the question again. What if it all resolves favorably? What if the postponement was divinely orchestrated? What if the betrayal was actually protection? What if the confusion was construction? What if the thing you're labeling a setback is the precise detour that will introduce you to the iteration of you that you actually require? You see, once you install that presumption, once it becomes your automatic setting, you no longer dread the unfamiliar. You welcome it, because the unfamiliar is not the adversary. It's the indication that something larger is taking shape, and your sole responsibility is to continue advancing, to construct when it's monotonous, to guide when nobody's applauding, to function as though the result is secured even if the scoreboard indicates you're losing. Because the scoreboard doesn't quantify your spirit. It doesn't monitor your conviction. It doesn't observe what's developing behind the curtain. Only you understand that. Only you understand how profound this determination extends. So articulate it to yourself right now. I exist as though everything is functioning for me. I don't panic, I prepare. I don't plead for indicators, I construct in silence. And I will not surrender because I've already determined the conclusion. This is not mental framework superficiality. This is psychological combat. It is the selection to navigate through the turbulence with order in your consciousness. Because once you determine how this concludes, you don't need to react fearfully at the middle. Conduct yourself as though everything resolves favorably, and soon it will, because what the consciousness accepts, the reality begins to reflect. Your subconscious mind accepts what you feed it and then constructs around that presumption. If you articulate "circumstances never function for me," your subconscious responds, "understood," and it begins filtering your universe through that perspective. That's what you start observing. That's what you start anticipating. That's what you attract, not because of mysticism, but because you ceased searching for anything different. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine awakening no matter the circumstance, with this quiet command running in the background: everything is working out for me. Even if you're financially broken, even if you've been betrayed, even if the path isn't clear yet, you still move like it's happening. You still execute like the doors are already opening. You still build like the foundation is solid. That belief alone, practiced daily, would rewire your entire life. Because when you assume things are working in your favor, you become calmer under pressure. You become more patient in the waiting. You move with power even when the evidence isn't there yet. This isn't delusion. This is leadership of self. This is the choice to walk through chaos with order in your mind. Because once you decide how this ends, you don't need to flinch at the middle. Act as if everything works out, and soon it will. Because what the mind accepts, the world starts to mirror. There is one quality above all others that separates the drifter from the builder, the lost from the locked in, the individual who observes life happening from the individual who molds it with his own hands. That quality is definiteness of purpose. A clear, unwavering, unshakable aim. A target burned so deeply into the subconscious that it becomes impossible to ignore, even in silence, even in failure, even in doubt. This is not a vague dream, not a list of goals, not a wish list typed into a phone at midnight and forgotten by morning. This is purpose written with fire, carried with discipline, protected with your life. Because without purpose, your energy scatters. Your hours are stolen by distraction. Your focus is hijacked by the next shiny thing. You chase a dozen paths and master none. You build halfway and then walk away. You mistake movement for momentum, activity for achievement, noise for direction. But when you become an individual with definiteness of purpose, your path narrows, your vision sharpens. You stop waking up wondering what the day will bring and start commanding the day to deliver what you have already decided. That's power. That's the beginning of transformation. Look at every individual who changed the course of history, and you will find a purpose behind their steps. Henry Ford didn't aim to be wealthy someday. He determined to revolutionize transportation, and he pursued it with a focus so sharp the world had no choice but to adjust. Charles Schwab didn't dabble. He knew what he was there to build. He knew what Carnegie needed. And his purpose was so magnetic that others followed, not because he demanded it, but because his clarity made hesitation impossible. Abraham Lincoln didn't drift into greatness. He made a decision so clear, so final, that not even a divided nation could shake it loose. That's what you need now. A final decision, a line in the sand, a sentence that lives in your bones so clear that your mind orbits around it every single day. Let me ask you, do you know your purpose? Do you know without a doubt what you are here to do? Because if not, no strategy, no system, no motivational presentation will save you. Your progress will always be temporary. Your habits will collapse under pressure. Because the one thing that holds it all together is your why, your decision, your purpose. So write it down. One sentence, not 10. One. What is it you must build before your time here is done? Who must you become? What must you give? What is the result that your life demands, not because it's easy, but because you decided it matters more than anything else? That's your purpose. And once you have it, you read it aloud every morning. You write it by hand every night. You don't wait to feel inspired. You rehearse it until it replaces every other thought. This is the foundation of all confidence, to wake up and know where you are going. You don't compare, you don't scroll, you don't flinch, because your steps are already assigned. Everything you do, the food you eat, the books you read, the habits you install, the words you speak, the risks you take, it all bends toward one thing, your definite purpose. And that gives you spiritual immunity against distraction. You no longer envy other people's paths because you are locked into your own. You no longer fear failure because you know it is part of the construction. You no longer need approval because your purpose gives you authority. And from that place, the decisions become easy. Clarity becomes your compass. Time bends in your favor. Because the universe, your mind, and every atom of your being begins to conspire around one thing: completion of the mission. But without that purpose, even the best habits will drift. Even the strongest individual will fall. Even the most brilliant mind will chase things that don't matter. So write the sentence, etch it into your soul. And this is not for someday. This is not for when life calms down. This is the day you stop living like a leaf in the wind and start moving like a builder with orders from within. Say it now. I know my purpose and I follow it without apology. I no longer wait for clarity. I generate it. My energy is sacred and my direction is locked in. This is how empires begin. Not with noise, but with one decision burned so deeply into an individual's spirit that even time itself bows in their direction. And if you haven't made that decision yet, make it now, because the clock is still running, but your focus hasn't been, and you've got work to do. You've got power to build, and none of it will happen without purpose. When you lack definiteness of purpose, you become a wanderer. You become reactive instead of proactive. You allow circumstances to dictate your direction instead of imposing your will upon circumstances. You wake up each day asking, "What should I do?" instead of declaring, "This is what I will do." That is the difference. The individual with purpose doesn't need motivation. Purpose is self-generating fuel. The individual with purpose doesn't suffer from procrastination in the same way, because every action either serves the purpose or it doesn't. The choice becomes binary. The path becomes illuminated. Look at every titan of industry, every revolutionary leader, every transformational figure. They all possess this quality. Not talent, not luck, not connections. They possessed an unshakable sense of what they were here to accomplish. And that knowing, that definiteness, created a gravitational pull. It attracted resources. It magnetized opportunities. It drew like-minded individuals into their orbit. Because purpose is magnetic. When you speak with purpose, people listen differently. When you move with purpose, people feel it. When you carry yourself with the calm certainty that comes from knowing exactly where you're going, the world makes space for you. But you must claim it. You must define it. You must write it down and make it so clear that a child could understand your mission in a single sentence. Not, "I want to be successful." That's vapor. That's nothing. But I will revolutionize how people consume information through visual storytelling. That's definite. I will build financial freedom for my family through real estate investing and never rely on a single income source again. That's definite. I will master my craft and become the top performer in my field within 5 years. That's definite. Can you feel the difference? Can you sense how one statement creates energy and the other dissipates it? That's the power of definiteness of purpose. It transforms ambition into architecture. It converts desire into direction. It takes the chaos of possibility and crystallizes it into a singular beam of focused intention. And once you possess that beam, nothing can stop you. Because you are no longer hoping, you are executing. You are no longer wishing, you are building. You are no longer dreaming, you are doing. So I ask you again, what is your purpose? What is the one thing that, if accomplished, would make everything else either unnecessary or easier? Write it, speak it, live it, and watch how rapidly your entire existence reorganizes itself around that clarity. Faith is not something you wait for. It is not a gift that descends from the sky. It is not the result of hope or circumstance. Faith is something you build. It is constructed the same way a building is constructed, brick by brick, act by act, thought by thought, until you stand in the middle of something so strong, so stable, that even your doubts must bow before it. Let me tell you a truth most individuals will never understand. Faith is not emotion, it is repetition. It is the byproduct of consistent, disciplined belief spoken aloud, written down, acted upon until your subconscious accepts it as fact. You don't find faith, you forge it, you train it, you rehearse it until it no longer requires evidence, because it becomes the evidence. And here's the key: the mind doesn't believe what is true, it believes what is repeated. That is why so many individuals believe in failure, because they've rehearsed it. They've spoken doubt daily. They've imagined disaster over and over. They've aligned their actions with fear and then wondered why faith hasn't arrived. Let me be clear. You cannot rehearse weakness and expect strength to show up. You cannot marinate in hesitation and expect certainty to grow. Faith, like muscle, is earned through resistance. It is built by applying pressure to your comfort. And every time you follow through, especially when it's hard, you earn more of it. That is why autosuggestion is not a game. It is the gateway. It is the act of deliberately feeding the mind the identity you have chosen, not the one you were given, not the one they labeled you with, the one you designed. That's why I don't tell you to casually watch a presentation and hope it changes you. I tell you to repeat it, to study it, to speak it back. Because when you do, when you make those words louder than the doubt, something extraordinary happens. You start to believe yourself. That is the root of all personal power. To know that when you speak, your subconscious listens. So you begin each day with command, not confusion. You wake up and speak the script of the individual you are becoming, not just because it sounds good, but because you know it is writing new grooves in your mind. And those grooves will become the path your feet walk. Thomas Edison did not succeed because he felt inspired. He succeeded because his faith in the outcome was greater than any single failure. 10,000 times he tried. 10,000 times he found a way that didn't work. But he never called them failures, because his faith was anchored. He had already seen the light before the world did. And every act of effort, every moment of fatigue, every time he reset his tools and started again, was another layer of belief. John D. Rockefeller didn't rise by luck. He trained his thinking like an individual trains for war. He believed in systems, in structure, in certainty. And that certainty came not from chaos, but from mental rehearsal. He built wealth in his mind before he ever built it in the world. You must do the same. You must see yourself follow through. You must imagine yourself moving with power. You must speak to yourself like a general, giving orders to a loyal army with calm, with clarity, with conviction. Because your subconscious mind is listening. It is always listening. And every word you whisper, every phrase you repeat, is either building faith or breaking it. So let me ask you, are you speaking power or poison? Are you reinforcing courage or conditioning cowardice? Are you using your words to lift yourself or lower yourself? Because what you repeat becomes real. Faith is not loud. It is not flashy. It does not beg for attention. Faith is silent, grounded, steady. It is built in the dark. It is built when you show up despite your feelings. It is built when you say, "I will," and follow through without applause. It is built when no one is looking and you move anyway. That's how Abraham Lincoln led a nation through fire. He wasn't the most popular. He wasn't the loudest. But he believed in the vision so deeply, so completely, that no critic could shake it loose. And when faith becomes unshakable, action becomes automatic. You no longer try to rise, you do. You no longer wonder if you're ready, you move. And your results begin to multiply, not by chance, but by design. So here's your instruction. Write your chief aim. Read it aloud every morning and every night, and with emotion, with certainty, with fire. Visualize the outcome, not once, but daily. Speak your identity not as a wish, but as a fact. I am focused. I am disciplined. I act with purpose. I do not flinch. This is not theory. This is practice. And when you practice it long enough, the individual you used to be, The individual of doubt, of fear, of hesitation, he fades into dust. And the individual of faith rises. Not someday, today. Because faith is constructed through the deliberate, relentless repetition of empowering thoughts until they become neural pathways, until they become reflexes, until they become who you are at your core. The average individual repeats their fears until fear becomes their identity. The exceptional individual repeats their vision until vision becomes their reality. Which are you? Are you rehearsing failure in your private moments? Are you mentally practicing worst-case scenarios? Are you reinforcing the narrative that things don't work out for you? Or are you installing a new program? Are you speaking life into your dreams before they manifest? Are you acting as though success is already secured, simply waiting for you to catch up to it in physical form? This is the difference between those who transform and those who merely wish for transformation. Transformation requires repetition. It requires you to speak your new identity so many times that your old identity has no oxygen left. It requires you to visualize your success so vividly, so consistently, that your subconscious mind cannot distinguish between what has happened and what will happen, and therefore moves you toward it automatically. That is faith, not hoping, not wishing, not waiting for a sign. Faith is the discipline of mental repetition until belief becomes embodied, until your nervous system accepts it, until your actions reflect it without conscious effort. So commit now to the daily practice. Every morning, before the world has access to your attention, you speak your purpose, you declare your identity, you rehearse your certainty, and every evening, before sleep claims your consciousness, you review your actions, you reinforce what aligned with your purpose, you course correct what didn't, and you plant seeds in your subconscious for tomorrow's execution. This is how faith is built, not in a moment, but in the relentless accumulation of aligned moments, brick by brick, word by word, belief by belief, until one day you realize you are no longer becoming, you have become. There comes a moment in every individual's life where they must make a decision so final, so absolute, that there is no path left to retreat. That moment is not about emotion. It's not about confidence. It's about commitment. Burning the bridge means this: you remove all exits, all fallback plans, all quiet excuses that whisper, if this doesn't work, I can always go back. No, you can't. Not anymore. Because that individual is gone. Let me tell you something that every titan of history has known. You do not truly transform until you remove the option of staying the same. You cannot build a new life while clinging to your old one. You cannot become someone new and still hold space for the person you used to be. You cannot win with your eyes halfway on the rearview mirror. Charles M. Schwab didn't become the president of Carnegie Steel by playing it safe. He wasn't the smartest individual in the room. He was the most decided. He carried himself like a leader before the world saw it. He aligned his speech, his tone, his energy with his desired position, and in doing so, he closed the door to mediocrity. When he walked into the room felt it. You want that kind of presence? You must decide so fully, so violently, that your past self is stunned into silence. This is what it means to burn the bridge. It's not symbolic. It's strategic. When you remove the option to quit, when you make it so there is no going back, you activate a part of your mind that most individuals never touch. It's the part that must win because it has no choice. Andrew Carnegie demanded this from his people. He didn't want those who were interested in success. He wanted individuals with one obsession, individuals who burned the bridge to every other pursuit. He understood this truth. A divided mind is a defeated mind. And so must you. You cannot serve two identities, the individual you've been and the individual you are becoming. One of them has to die. That means you must remove everything that gives the old you oxygen, every distraction, every excuse, every person who keeps you small. You say you want to rise? Good. Then it's time to remove the staircase back down. You say you want to become unrecognizable? Then stop keeping souvenirs from your past self. That means you delete the contacts that drain your focus. You clear your space of things that reinforce the old habits. You stop visiting the mental corners where doubt still lives. You destroy the comfort you use to retreat to. Because comfort is a liar. It says you're fine where you are, but greatness never lives there. Greatness begins the moment you close the back door and walk forward with fire. That's what Henry Ford did when he bet everything on the assembly line. He didn't ask for permission. He didn't try to convince the skeptics. He decided, and in that decision, he removed failure as an option. People laughed. He didn't. Because an individual who has burned the bridge does not have time to entertain doubt. He is too busy executing. Now listen to me carefully. You will be tempted more than once to look back. You will think about how easy it was to be lazy, to scroll, to sleep in, to live without pressure. And that voice will sound reasonable. It will offer balance. It will tell you it's okay, just this once. That voice is the final ghost of the old identity. Kill it. Do not entertain it. Do not respond to it. Do not explain yourself to it. Replace it. Every time it whispers, you speak louder. I said 90, not 9. I act from decision, not from feeling. I move because I chose this path, not because it's easy, but because it's mine. Do you understand what that does? It hardens your will. It trains your subconscious to believe that your word is law, that your actions are not suggestions, they are commands. This is where the edge is formed. Because now you don't need emotion to move. You don't need motivation. You move because the bridge is gone. You move because the individual you used to be has no shelter left. You move because the only direction is forward. Thomas Edison didn't hope for a breakthrough. He decided there would be one. And he worked like an individual with no alternative. 10,000 failures, and not once did he consider going back. Why? Because he had no bridge to return to. You must adopt the same mindset. Burn the plan B. Eliminate the what if. Live as if this is the only shot, because it is. The clock doesn't pause. The world doesn't wait, and neither should you. You have been dancing with discipline long enough. You flirted with greatness long enough. Now is the time to marry the mission fully, finally, without hesitation. Because once the bridge is gone and the fire rises behind you, there is no turning back. Only forward, only execution, only evolution. Let that be the point of no return. Let that be the day everything changed. Let that be today. When you burn the bridge, you also burn away the version of yourself that negotiates, the version that rationalizes, the version that says, maybe tomorrow, or let me think about it, or I'll start when conditions are better. That version dies in the flames. And what rises from those ashes is something far more dangerous. An individual with nothing to lose and everything to prove. An individual who has staked everything on a single vision and refuses to let circumstances dictate the outcome. This is not recklessness. This is calculated commitment. Because the truth is, most people never commit fully to anything. They keep one foot in their old life and one foot in their dreams, and they wonder why they never move forward. They wonder why momentum never builds. They wonder why breakthrough never comes. It's because they're still holding the escape rope. Cut it. Burn the bridge. Remove the safety net. Eliminate every comfortable option that allows you to retreat when things get difficult. And yes, this will terrify you. Good. Terror is evidence that you're doing something significant. Terror means you're standing at the edge of transformation. Terror means the old you is dying, and the new you hasn't fully formed yet. Stay in that space. Live in that discomfort. Because on the other side of that bridge, burning on the other side of that fear, is the version of you that's been waiting your entire life to emerge. The version that doesn't negotiate. The version that doesn't retreat. The version that moves with absolute certainty because there is literally no other option. That's who you become when you burn the bridge. Not someday, today. So ask yourself, what bridge needs burning? What fallback plan is keeping you soft? What comfortable option is preventing you from becoming who you must become? Identify it and set it on fire. Because the moment you do, you become truly dangerous. not to others, but to your own limitations. You become an individual who cannot be stopped because retreat is no longer in your vocabulary. And that individual, that committed, bridge-burning, all-in version of you, that individual is unstoppable. No individual rises alone. No individual becomes powerful by staying in isolation. While discipline is forged in solitude, acceleration is born in alignment. There is a force more powerful than willpower, more potent than skill or ambition. It is the power of the mastermind, and it begins with this truth. You become like the minds you consistently align with. Your thoughts are shaped by your circle. Your energy is influenced by your environment. Your identity is forged in the company you keep. You may believe you're strong enough to carry your mission alone, but look around, truly look. Who do you share your time with? Who do you allow to shape your vision? Who do you speak to most? Because those voices are either building you or breaking you. The mastermind is not just a group. It is a mental alliance, a convergence of aligned minds moving with a shared intention to elevate, not distract, to build, not entertain, to sharpen, not soften. You must seek this, or you must build it. That means find individuals who speak with clarity, who move with purpose, who understand what silence means, who don't need to be reminded of the mission because they live it. When you connect your mind to others moving with the same fire, something miraculous happens. You become faster, stronger, more focused. You multiply your energy. You collapse timelines. You begin to unlock ideas you never would have seen on your own because the mastermind brings perspective. This is not theory. This is the same strategy used by the greatest builders of history. Henry Ford did not build his empire in a vacuum. He surrounded himself with thinkers, engineers, and individuals of unshakable belief. They didn't always agree, but they aligned. They pushed. They challenged each other into higher forms of execution. Thomas Edison had a mental network of collaboration, not noise. Ideas passed between minds, each one sharpened through shared obsession. Andrew Carnegie, one of the wealthiest minds ever to live, attributed his fortune not to luck, not to capital, but to the power of the mastermind, to having one goal reinforced by many minds united in purpose. Charles M. Schwab rose because he sought alignment with the highest vision and made it his daily environment. The mastermind does not happen by accident. It is created carefully, deliberately. But let's be clear, not everyone around you qualifies. A mastermind does not include people who speak with doubt, people who gossip, people who chase comfort, people who mock discipline, people who wait for permission to move. You must remove them from your mental atmosphere immediately, because a single weak mind in your circle can dilute the fire you're building. Protecting your energy is not arrogance, it is strategy. If an individual does not feed your vision, he bleeds it. If he does not mirror your commitment, he distracts you from it. If he cannot see the future you are building, he has no place in its foundation. Let me give you a rule. If you wouldn't trade places with their life, don't take advice from their voice. You are not obligated to carry the weight of others' confusion. You are here to build something different, sharper, clearer, higher. So what do? You form your mastermind by choice. Start with one aligned mind, one voice that sharpens you, one individual who speaks clarity over chaos, then another and another, until your circle becomes a system, a structure, a support so tight, so aligned, that failure becomes difficult. Meet weekly, speak with purpose, share goals, hold each other to higher standards. Eliminate the soft language, maybe, someday, I'll try. Replace it with declarations, with accountability, with fire. And if you cannot find this circle yet, be it. Be the standard, speak with authority, move with conviction. Others will feel it, and they will rise to meet you or fall away. Do not chase approval. Do not try to convert those who are committed to drifting. Just build, just move, just live aligned, and those meant to walk with you will appear. This is not about community for the sake of comfort. It is about alignment for the sake of power. Because when a mind as sharp as yours joins with another of equal fire, the laws of success begin to bend. The path gets clearer, the results get faster, the noise gets quieter. This is the hidden power of the mastermind, the power to multiply your mission. When you stand alone, you possess one perspective, one energy source, one set of skills. But when you align with others who share your hunger, your discipline, your refusal to settle, you create something exponential. You create momentum that cannot be stopped, ideas that cannot be contained, standards that cannot be lowered. But understand this, the mastermind principle only works when every member is equally committed. One weak link destroys the entire structure. One individual operating from fear, from scarcity, from ego can poison the entire alliance. That's why selectivity is not optional. That's why you must be ruthless in guarding who has access to your energy, your vision, your inner circle. Most people collect friends. Builders curate allies. Most people fear loneliness. Builders fear contamination. Most people want to be liked. Builders want to be effective. So make your decision now. Who do I need to align with? Who do I need to release? And who do I need to become to attract the minds I want around me? Then begin. One aligned conversation can change your life, and one weak conversation can steal it. Choose wisely, because the mastermind you build today becomes the empire you lead tomorrow, and every great empire in history was built not by lone wolves, but by packs moving with unified vision and relentless execution. Find your pack, or build it. But do not walk this path alone when you could walk it alongside giants. Before the action, before the money, before the momentum, there must be belief. Because no individual ever accomplished anything of greatness without first seeing it in their mind. You must believe long before the world gives you permission, long before the world applauds, long before the evidence shows up. That is the true test. Can you act as if it's already real while it's still invisible? This is what separates the few who rise from the many who quit. Understand this. Faith is not a luxury. It's not an optional mindset reserved for the optimistic. Faith is a requirement, the foundation, the beginning of all transformation. You may think you need clarity to begin. You don't. You may think you need resources, motivation, support. You don't. What you need is a decision backed by belief, the kind of belief that is felt in your chest, that moves your feet, that speaks louder than doubt even when your voice shakes. Abraham Lincoln did not know how the war would end. He didn't have certainty in strategy, but he had faith in principle. Faith that freedom must win, even if the road cost everything. Henry Ford had no map, no market, no approval, but he believed so deeply in his vision that the world eventually bent to his certainty. Rockefeller built empires before the infrastructure even existed. Why? Because in his mind, it was already done. Edison, Carnegie, Schwab, none of them waited for evidence before they believed. They created the evidence by acting in advance of it. That is what faith does. It precedes the results. But fear does the opposite. Fear says, I'll wait until I see proof. Faith says, I'll move and then make the proof appear. Which voice do you obey? Fear waits, fear scrolls, fear calculates every risk and forgets every reward. Faith builds, faith acts, faith believes and moves anyway. And if you think this is just positive thinking, you misunderstand the laws that govern your mind. Your subconscious does not respond to what is true. It responds to what is repeated, what is felt, what is believed. If you repeat fear, your life becomes a pattern of protection. If you repeat belief, your life becomes a pattern of creation. That is why autosuggestion is so vital. Why you don't just hear the words, you speak them. You feel them. You emotionalize them into your subconscious until they become your identity. You don't just say, I believe. You say, I act with faith. I do not wait to feel ready. I know who I am becoming, and I move accordingly. This is how belief is installed. Every day you speak the vision. Every day you move like it's done. Every day you refuse to let fear direct your decisions. That's the part most individuals miss. They think belief is just mindset, but belief is also motion. If you want to believe, act like you believe. Because action reinforces belief. Each time you follow through without evidence, each time you show up when it's hard, each time you keep your word in private, you build a new identity. An identity that says, I don't need proof. I am the proof. Let me give you a law. Belief precedes performance. You will never outperform the image you hold of yourself. So the question is not, can I do it? The question is, what am I rehearsing? What am I telling myself daily in silence? What identity am I speaking into existence or avoiding out of fear? Because the world doesn't respond to potential, it responds to certainty. Certainty in your voice, certainty in your movement, certainty in your presence. You cannot fake that. It must be forged. And you forge it through daily rehearsal, through repetition of belief in the absence of proof. Every morning, speak your vision. Every evening, reflect on your actions. Every hour, refuse to betray the individual you said you're becoming. And watch what happens. The fear doesn't vanish, but your faith gets louder. The doubt doesn't disappear, but your decisions override it, until eventually your belief becomes undeniable. And so do you. This is not mysticism. This is not fantasy. This is the reality of how every empire begins. With an invisible vision believed in so deeply, repeated so often, acted on so boldly, that the world has no choice but to see it too. So choose your belief now. Choose what you'll repeat. Because you are always programming your mind. The only question is, with what? Will you program it with doubt, with hesitation, with the voice that says, who am I to dream this big? Or will you program it with faith, with conviction, with the voice that says, I was made for this, and nothing will stop me from becoming who I'm meant to be? That choice made daily, made hourly, made in every private moment determines everything. Let your faith become your foundation, and let your daily actions prove it. Because faith without action is just a wish, but faith combined with relentless movement, that becomes inevitability. The world bows to the individual who believes before seeing, who moves before knowing, who acts as if success is already written, and their only job is to show up and claim it. Be that individual. Believe first, move second, and let the results catch up to the certainty you've been carrying all along. Not someday, today. If there is one trait that separates the builders of history from the individuals who remain in hesitation their entire lives, it is decisiveness. The ability to choose and never retreat. You do not drift your way into greatness. You decide your way there. One decision, repeated without apology, becomes the dividing line between those who make history and those who only watch it unfold. Let this be understood. Indecision is the breeding ground of fear, and the longer you wait to choose, the louder the doubt becomes. An individual who delays decays. Every time you hesitate on your next step, you make room for second guessing, for outside opinion, for fear disguised as logic, and slowly your energy leaks, your clarity fades, your conviction crumbles. And this is why an individual must train himself to decide fast and change his mind slowly. That is the habit of the elite. Henry Ford was not an individual who asked permission. He did not poll the crowd. When he made a decision, it was final, forged in fire. Even when his own engineers told him that an 8-cylinder engine in one block was impossible, he told them, build it anyway. And they did, because his decision was stronger than their doubt. Charles M. Schwab, in the steel empire of Carnegie, rose not just because he was competent, but because he was decisive. He didn't hesitate. He didn't dance around responsibility. He moved. He understood the pressure of command and made the hard calls. This is what most miss. They think successful individuals are the smartest or the most connected. No, they are the most decided. They walk into the day knowing who they are. They don't need to feel ready. They are ready because they said so. Look at Andrew Carnegie. He didn't build his empire through endless research. He built it through direction. One goal, one mission, one purpose chosen with finality. And from that decision, everything else was shaped. Your life works the same way. Until you decide who you are, the world will keep assigning roles for you. It will hand you scripts. It will offer distractions. It will tempt you to stay average. But when you decide, truly decide, the world has no choice but to rearrange around that choice. Here is the law. Decision creates identity. Indecision preserves the old self. So if you keep drifting back into old habits, it is not because you are weak. It is because you have not decided to leave them behind. What's worse, indecision breeds more indecision. It compounds. And soon your life becomes a loop of almost starts and nearly finished goals. But when you choose, when you burn the bridge, when you kill the backup plan, you create an energy that cannot be faked. That energy, the world responds to. Your mind aligns to it. Your standards are born from it. Let me give you an instruction. Make one powerful decision today and refuse to revisit it. If it's fitness, decide. If it's business, decide. If it's who you're becoming, decide now. And when the voice of doubt creeps in, when the temptation to adjust or wait or feel it out shows up, you don't listen, because the decision is already made. Thomas Edison didn't ask the light bulb for permission. He didn't wait until he had all the answers. He decided, and he pursued over 10,000 attempts, not trials, decisions. You need that same resolve, because each decision, backed by definiteness of purpose, builds your internal spine. And once your spine is built, the storms of life lose their power. They cannot move an individual who has already decided. Even Abraham Lincoln, who faced the weight of a nation in civil war, was not paralyzed by indecision. He was methodical, but he was final. His Emancipation Proclamation was not born of public applause. It was born of personal resolve. That kind of decision shapes the future. So ask yourself now, what decision have you been avoiding? What goal have you kept open so you don't have to commit? What mission have you left negotiable? Draw the line today. Say it out loud if you have to. I no longer delay. I no longer drift. I no longer entertain versions of me that hesitate. You say it. You write it. You live it. And from that one decision, all other actions flow. Because the truth is this, most individuals are not waiting on opportunity. They are waiting on permission to decide. But I tell you now, no one is coming to give it. The greats didn't wait. They chose. So choose, with spine, with fire, with finality. And from that moment forward, you become unshakable. There is a secret embedded in the foundation of every fortune. It is not luck. It is not timing. It is not a charm. It is the habit of doing more than one is paid to do. This law, the law of compensation, governs advancement like gravity governs motion. It does not discriminate. It does not miss. It simply returns to each individual the value they contribute, multiplied over time. And here's the truth most will never understand. You are not paid for your time. You are paid for your value. And value is determined by one thing, how far you're willing to go beyond what is expected. The average individual performs at the level of their paycheck, but the exceptional individual, he performs at the level of his potential. He doesn't wait to be rewarded. He becomes so effective, so consistent, so deeply valuable that reward becomes inevitable. This is the law, and it cannot be faked. Charles M. Schwab rose from humble beginnings, not because he had better education, but because he had a better attitude toward work. He became indispensable by making himself irreplaceable. He gave his mind. He gave his energy. He gave more than he was paid for. And because of that, Andrew Carnegie eventually paid him more than any steel individual in history. Carnegie himself practiced this principle with almost spiritual devotion. When he built his early career, he worked longer hours. He took on greater challenges. He volunteered for responsibilities outside his title, not for recognition, but for growth. And that growth positioned him for opportunity. This is how the climb begins. You don't get promoted by asking. You get promoted by becoming too valuable to ignore. Understand this. The marketplace pays for impact, not intention. It doesn't matter how long you meant to. It doesn't care how busy you were. It only measures results. And those results are multiplied for the individual who consistently goes above and beyond. That's where you must live, in the extra mile, the unpaid hour, the unseen effort, the quiet improvement. Because here's the secret no one talks about. The extra mile is the emptiest one, and that's why it's where all the power lives. Everyone wants to get ahead, but few are willing to give more than they're asked. Few wake up early without being told. Few deliver excellence when average is accepted. Few take ownership of mistakes that weren't even theirs. But the few who do, they rise. Thomas Edison did not stop when the world said enough. He worked relentlessly, not to clock hours, but to produce value. Over 1,000 patents, invention after invention. Why? Because he focused not on reward, but on output. And reward followed. And this is why you must detach from immediate return. If you only act when rewarded, you will forever be enslaved by permission. But if you act from principle, from the law itself, you become independent of circumstances. You act not for applause, but because you are the kind of individual who does more than what is required. And over time, the world catches up. Henry Ford didn't invent the car. He revolutionized the process. He built something better, faster, more accessible. He didn't stop at good enough. He pushed boundaries. He over-delivered. And because of that, the market followed him. Success is not reserved for the lucky. It is earned by the individual who outserves, out-improves, and outlasts. That is what you must install, not just in business, but in your home, in your discipline, in your mission. When you do more than expected, you become more than expected. You grow, you gain self-respect, you earn influence, and most importantly, you rise above the competition without needing to destroy anyone else. So here's your challenge. Where can you over-deliver today? What extra detail can you improve? What skill can you sharpen without being asked? What task can you complete better than expected? And once you answer, you do it. Not once, but daily, until excellence becomes your habit, and your name becomes associated with certainty. Because that's the highest currency, certainty of execution. The individual who always delivers, even when no one's watching, becomes the individual who is always called on when it matters. So if you want to advance, if you want to rise, if you want to build a reputation that makes opportunity chase you, not the other way around, then stop asking for more and start giving more. Quietly, relentlessly, with no need for credit. Because credit will come, compensation will come, recognition will come, but only if you build yourself into the kind of individual who doesn't need it. Say this aloud. I do more than what I'm paid to do. I am not average. I move with excellence even when no one is watching. And if you repeat that, and you live that, you will never lack opportunity again, because the law is simple. He who gives more becomes more, and he who becomes more will always have more. Let me be even more direct. Most individuals are transactional. They calculate effort against reward. They give exactly what is required and not 1 ounce more. They operate from scarcity, believing that if they give too much, they'll be taken advantage of. But the builder operates differently. The builder understands abundance. The builder knows that value given always returns, not always immediately, not always from the same source, but it always returns multiplied. This is not naive generosity. This is strategic investment in your own reputation, your own skills, your own character. Every time you go beyond what is expected, you are making a deposit into an account the world cannot see, but always remembers. And when the time comes, when opportunity knocks, when doors open, when advancement is available, the world pays back those who over-delivered when no one was watching. Carnegie understood this at a cellular level. He didn't just work harder, he worked with the understanding that his effort was building something far greater than a paycheck. He was building trust. He was building reputation. He was building the foundation of an empire. And that empire didn't come from one big break. It came from 10,000 small acts of over-delivery. 10,000 moments where he could have done the minimum, but chose to do the maximum. That's the compound effect of the extra mile. One day of over-delivery, no one notices. 1 week, still invisible. But 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, you become legendary. You become the person everyone wants to work with, invest in, promote, and partner with. Because you have proven through consistent, relentless over-delivery that you are not like everyone else. You are not average. You do not negotiate with excellence. You embody it. So the question is not, what will I get for this? The question is, who will I become by doing this? And when you shift to that question, everything changes. You stop keeping score. You stop waiting for recognition. You stop performing for others and start performing for yourself, because you have become the kind of individual who cannot do anything less than their best. That is the law of compensation in its purest form, not a tactic, not a strategy, but a way of being that makes success inevitable. You may have strength, you may have intelligence, you may have the most brilliant plan in the world, but if your presence repels others, if your energy repels trust, if your manner of speech pushes people away instead of drawing them near, then your power will never reach its full expression. Because the truth is this: no individual rises alone. And the one who knows how to influence others with warmth, confidence, and clarity will always move faster and farther than the individual who tries to force everything by brute strength. This is what we call a pleasing personality. Not manipulation, not charm, but a cultivated energy, one that magnetizes others without begging for attention. It is the invisible factor behind the most successful individuals in history, the quality that opens doors, that earns loyalty, that multiplies influence. Let me tell you plainly, a pleasing personality is not a gift, it is a discipline. It is a product of self-awareness, emotional control, and intentional practice. Andrew Carnegie built one of the greatest fortunes in history, not because he was the loudest, but because he knew how to make others feel seen. He listened more than he spoke. He praised more than he criticized. He mastered the art of influence, not through domination, but through presence. And that presence made others want to work with him. It drew power toward him. Charles M. Schwab was famous for this. Though not a technical genius, he became president of U.S. Steel because of how he made people feel. He smiled often. He remembered names. He made others feel important. And through that, he got the best out of his team without ever raising his voice. Because power isn't just force. Power is the ability to move others willingly. You must understand this. A pleasing personality isn't about being fake. It's not about being soft. It's about refining yourself into someone whose presence communicates this individual is worth trusting. This individual is worth following. And that doesn't mean becoming a performer. It means mastering these quiet disciplines. Tone of voice, speak with conviction, not hesitation. Facial expression, a calm, confident presence speaks before you say a word. Genuine interest, people remember how you made them feel. Ask real questions. Listen deeply. Optimism, a pleasing personality does not dwell in negativity. It uplifts. It radiates certainty. The world is full of loud, bitter, argumentative individuals trying to prove themselves. But the individual with a pleasing personality, he doesn't argue. He doesn't shout. He doesn't over-explain. He influences. He persuades. He builds bridges where others burn them. Ask yourself, do people feel stronger after speaking with me? Do I make others feel valued, not by flattery, but by attention? Do I carry myself with calm authority or chaotic energy? Because here's the bottom line. The most powerful individual in the room is not the one who talks the most, but the one others listen to when he finally speaks. Repeat this daily. My presence is calm, powerful, and persuasive. I make others feel seen, heard, and understood. I do not argue, I influence. And over time, that energy becomes magnetic. The world starts leaning toward you not because you shouted, but because you built yourself into an individual worth following.
That's all for today. If you found value in this message, show your support by hitting the like button, subscribing to this channel, and turning on notifications so you never miss our daily releases. Take action today. Your future self will thank you.